At 9:07 a.m., they made me clap for the woman who stole my work. The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and false congratulations. A glass wall, a slideshow, and my name missing from every single slide. They didn't even try to hide it. My manager, Lucas Hart, stood beside the screen like a proud father at a graduation. He put his hand on her shoulder, gentle, possessive, like he had discovered her himself. "Everyone," he said, voice warm as a staged sunrise, "I want you to welcome Harper Lane, our new senior strategy lead." Senior. My title. My seat. My accounts. My roadmap. Given away like a party favor. People clapped because clapping is what you do when you want to keep your paycheck. I clapped too. Not because I agreed. Because I understood something in that moment that changed the way I breathe. If you scream in a room like this, you become the problem. If you stay quiet, you become invisible. And invisibility is a weapon. Harper smiled at me like she didn't know. But she did. I could tell by the way her eyes didn't linger. She didn't have to. She already had what she came for. Lucas kept talking about fresh leadership, and new energy, and a strategic pivot. I watched the room like a surveillance camera. The CFO pretending to care. The HR director nodding too fast. The VP staring at her phone. They all knew. They all participated. And I realized, with a strange calm, that the betrayal wasn't one person. It was a system, a machine with smiling teeth. Then, Lucas did the final twist. He turned to the room and said, "And special thanks to Claire Bennett for being flexible. Claire has agreed to transition her responsibilities smoothly." Flexible. That was the word they use when they're about to break you. He didn't say Claire built this. He didn't say Claire carried this department. He said, flexible, like I was a rubber band. And everyone clapped again. I looked down at my hands. They were steady. No shaking, no trembling. Just a slow, controlled clap, like a countdown. Because by 9:09 a.m., I had already decided I wasn't going to fight them in the open. I was going to let them believe I surrendered. And then I was going to take back everything they stole, without ever raising my voice. At Garrison and Klein, nothing was truly yours. Not your ideas. Not your time. Not even your fatigue. Everything belonged to the person who signed the slide deck. And Lucas Hart signed everything. He was the kind of manager who spoke in clean sentences and kept his hands perfectly still when he lied. He called people rock stars right before he buried them. He said family when he meant obedience. He said alignment when he meant silence. I used to think I could outwork him, that if my results were undeniable, the truth would protect me. That was the lie I told myself for 3 years. Because results don't protect you in a place like this. Relationships do. Politics do. And Lucas had both. I was hired as a strategy analyst. Entry-level title. Mid-level workload. Executive-level expectations. They brought me in because I had a track record at a smaller firm. Quiet, consistent, profitable. They also brought me in because I was easy to underestimate. I didn't talk over people. I didn't fight for airtime. I didn't wear power like perfume. I came in early, took notes, and delivered. And I made the mistake of thinking that was enough. The first month, I fixed their churn model. The second, I rebuilt their client segmentation. By the third month, the VP of sales started using my dashboards like they were oxygen. My work didn't just make the company look smarter. It made them money. Real money. The kind of money that gets someone promoted. The kind of money that makes a manager hungry. Lucas began inviting me into meetings that weren't meant for my pay grade. At first, I thought it was recognition. Then I realized it was extraction. He'd pull me into his office, close the door, and smile like he was doing me a favor. "Claire," he'd say, "I want your brain on something. Just rough thoughts." Rough thoughts. That was how he stole. He'd ask for rough thoughts. And 2 weeks later, those same thoughts would be on a boardroom slide with his name stamped on them. At first, I let it go. I told myself it was normal. That this was how climbing worked. That he was the face, and I was the engine. But engines burn out. And faces take credit. Then came the project that changed everything. Project Meridian. A full strategic overhaul of how G&K priced their enterprise contracts. It was messy, political, and dangerous because it touched commissions, bonuses, and executive pride. If it worked, the company would grow. If it failed, someone would be offered up like a sacrifice. Lucas promised me a seat at the table. He said, "You'll lead the analysis. I'll make sure everyone knows it's you." He said it like he was handing me a future. So I gave him everything. Nights, weekends, holidays. I built the pricing architecture from scratch. I mapped risk. I ran simulations. I crafted the narrative so even the most impatient executive could understand it. And when it was done, the plan was elegant. Not loud. Not flashy. Just inevitable. It was the kind of strategy that doesn't feel like genius until it's already working. Then, one Tuesday evening, I walked past a conference room and saw my work on the screen. Not my name. Not my presence. Just my work. Lucas was inside with 2 directors and the CFO. The door was cracked open just enough for me to hear him. He said, "I've been thinking about this for months." I stopped walking. My hand tightened around my badge. He clicked to the next slide. It was my slide. Every chart. Every sentence. Even the tiny formatting choices I always made when I was tired, like I was leaving fingerprints. And he kept talking. "Meridian is the pivot we've been waiting for," he said. "I'm confident we can roll this out in Q1. The CFO nodded. One of the directors smiled. They looked impressed. They looked grateful. They looked at Lucas like he was the reason the numbers were singing. I waited for someone to say my name. No one did. I walked away without making a sound. Not because I was weak, because I was collecting data. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't call a friend. I didn't write a dramatic resignation email. I opened my laptop and did what I always did when I needed control. I organized. I created a folder called Meridian. Inside it, I placed everything that proved the truth. Every meeting invite. Every version history. Every comment thread. Every timestamp. I didn't do it because I planned revenge. Not yet. I did it because, deep down, I knew. This wasn't the first time. It was just the first time I had seen it. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. The next day, Lucas acted normal. He asked me for an updated summary. He said he wanted to tighten the narrative. He asked for a final round of projections like I was his assistant. And I did it. I delivered the numbers with a smile. Because I wasn't done building the trap. Over the next 6 weeks, something strange happened. Lucas started leaving me out. Not out of meetings. Out of visibility. He'd invite me, then introduce me like I was an intern. "This is Claire," he'd say. "She supports the team." Supports. Like I was a chair. He'd forward my work to executives with a line that said, "Here's what we came up with." We. He began scheduling meetings without adding me to the invite. He began asking me for updates through Harper Lane, the new senior strategy lead, who hadn't even joined yet. I didn't know her then. I only knew her name because it kept appearing in the calendar. Lucas was preloading the company with her presence, making her feel inevitable, the way you stage a coup. One afternoon, HR sent me a meeting invite. Title: Career Alignment Conversation. No agenda. Just a calendar block. That's how corporate America says. Prepare to be reshaped. I walked into the HR office and found Lucas sitting beside Dana Pierce, the HR director. Dana had the soft eyes of someone who could ruin your life politely. Lucas smiled like he was about to gift me a promotion. "Claire," Dana said. "We're reviewing team structure." Lucas leaned forward. "We've been so impressed with your flexibility," he said. "That word again. Flexible. We think you'd thrive in a new role," Dana added. Then she slid a paper across the table. It wasn't a promotion. It wasn't even lateral. It was a demotion wrapped in optimism. A strategic support specialist. Lower title. Lower bonus eligibility. Same workload. Different label. A neat little box they could store me in. I looked at the paper. I looked at their faces. And in that moment, my mind didn't race. It clarified. Because I finally understood the whole plan. They weren't just stealing my work. They were removing the witness. If I accepted, I'd disappear. If I refused, I'd become difficult. Either way, Harper would arrive to applause. Lucas would keep the throne. And I would be erased gently. I didn't sign. Not then. I said I needed time to review it. Lucas's smile tightened. Dana's pen hovered like a threat. "Of course. she said. Take 48 hours. 48 hours. That's how long they thought it would take me to surrender. I walked out, returned to my desk, and sat down like nothing happened. People around me typed, laughed, sipped coffee. No one knew I had just been handed a quiet execution. I opened my calendar, and that's when I saw it. A meeting scheduled for the following Monday. Meridian Executive Review. Attendees: Lucas, CFO, 2 directors, and Harper Lane. Not me. Harper wasn't even employed yet, but she was already sitting in my seat. I stared at the invite until the words blurred. Then I did the one thing Lucas never expected. I didn't panic. I didn't go to war. I went to the source, the systems, because the truth about corporate betrayal is simple. People lie, but systems keep receipts. I clicked into the backend analytics platform, one I helped implement. I checked permission logs. I checked document access history. I checked the exact time my files were downloaded. And there it was. A pattern. Lucas had been accessing my Meridian folder late at night. Not for reviewing. For transferring. He was building his own copy. A clean version. One that wouldn't show my fingerprints. He thought he was wiping the evidence. But he didn't know one detail. A tiny configuration setting from the implementation phase. A setting I personally insisted on. Because I was too careful. Because I was too detail-oriented. Because I was me. The platform kept a shadow history. Not visible to most users, but visible to the admin role. And I still had temporary admin access. It hadn't expired. Yet. I stared at that screen for a long time. Not because I was shocked, because I was suddenly calm. The way you get calm when you realize you're not crazy. When you realize you're not imagining it. When you realize you can prove it. I copied the log entries. I exported them. I saved them in 3 places. Then I opened a new folder. A folder Lucas would never see. I named it Receipts. And in that folder, I placed the beginning of my revenge. Not rage. Not drama. Evidence? Because in the corporate world, revenge isn't a punch. It's a signature. And I was about to make them sign. Harper Lane arrived on a Monday. She wore confidence the way some people wear. Perfume light, intentional, impossible to ignore. Early 30s. Polished. Warm voice. Perfect posture. The kind of woman executives call a breath of fresh air. The kind they install when they want change without conflict. She shook hands like she'd practiced in front of a mirror. Firm, brief, reassuring. When she reached my desk, she smiled. Not nervous. Not curious. Prepared. Claire, right? She said. I've heard so much about you. That sentence landed heavier than it should have. Because I hadn't heard anything about her. Not officially. Not until she appeared fully formed, already trusted. Already placed above me. You've built something impressive here, she continued. Lucas says you're essential. Essential. That word only exists right before you're replaced. I smiled back. The kind of smile women learn when being underestimated is safer than being respected. I'm happy to help however I can, I said. And that was true. Just not in the way she thought. Harper took my chair. Not literally. Symbolically. She didn't ask where things were. She didn't ask who did what. She assumed. Assumption is a luxury given to people backed by power. Lucas hovered near her desk all day. Explaining. Reassuring. Guiding. He hadn't spoken to me that much in months. At noon, he called a team meeting. A welcome sync. Everyone gathered. Coffee cups. Laptops. Careful expressions. Lucas stood beside Harper again. Like he had in the announcement. Only this time, he didn't look proud. He looked relieved. As you know, he said. We're transitioning leadership on Meridian. Transitioning. A gentle word for theft. Harper will be taking point, he continued. Claire will support to ensure continuity. Support. There it was again. I felt eyes flick toward me. Some apologetic. Some relieved it wasn't them. Harper smiled, like she was receiving a gift she deserved. Honestly, she said, I couldn't ask for a better partner. Claire's work is foundational. Foundational. The ground you step on. Not the name on the building. I nodded. I'll walk you through everything, I said. And that's when I saw it. The flicker. Just a fraction of a second. Harper's eyes sharpened. Not threatened. Assessing. She wasn't naive. She was strategic, which meant she was dangerous. And useful. The first week, I gave her exactly what Lucas expected. Access. Context. Clean explanations. But I never gave her ownership. Never the full picture. Never the why behind the numbers. I let her believe she understood. That's how traps work. You don't hide the door. You let them walk through it confidently. Every morning, Harper asked questions. Smart ones. Framed to signal competence. She took notes fast. Spoke smoothly. Executives liked her because she mirrored them. Lucas liked her because she made him feel secure. I liked her because she underestimated me. On Wednesday, she asked for admin access to the analytics platform. I want to get closer to the data, she said. Lucas approved it within minutes. Of course he did. I was CC'd. That was the first mistake. Because admin access wasn't just a key. It was a fingerprint. And Harper left hers everywhere. She didn't know about the shadow history. About the immutable logs. About the quiet record that never forgets. By Friday, she was presenting Meridian like it was hers. She used my phrases, my pacing, my logic. But something was off. She skipped steps. Simplified risks. She didn't feel the edges. Because she hadn't bled on the work. After the meeting, she pulled me aside. Hey, she said softly. Lucas wants us aligned. No surprises. Aligned. That word again. I agree, I said. No surprises. She relaxed. Thought we were on the same side. That weekend, I stayed late. Not because I was required. Because I was precise. I reviewed every change Harper made. Every file she touched. Every assumption she edited. She moved fast. Too fast. She didn't validate the commission impact. Didn't stress test the international clients. Didn't notice the regulatory dependency baked into Phase 3. She assumed Lucas had covered it. Lucas assumed I would. And I let them both believe that. On Monday morning, HR followed up. Dana Pierce sent a polite reminder. Hi Claire. Just checking in on the role transition document. We'll need your decision today. Decision. As if the outcome wasn't already written. I replied with one sentence. I'll have an answer by end of day. Then I opened the receipts folder again. I added Harper's access logs. Her edits. Her time-stamped approvals. I added Lucas's forwarded emails. The ones where he said, we. The ones where he erased me gently. I didn't send anything. Not yet. Because revenge rushed is just emotion. Revenge timed is strategy. That afternoon, Harper invited me into a small conference room. Glass walls. Neutral lighting. The kind of room built for difficult conversations that never get recorded. I want to be honest, she said. Her tone shifted. Less warmth. More edge. I know this transition isn't easy. I waited. She continued. I didn't ask for it to happen this way, but I also can't slow down for feelings. There it was. The truth disguised as empathy. I respect your experience, she said. But this role, it's mine now. Mine. Ownership claimed before accountability. I hope we can be professional, she added. I smiled. We can, I said, and meant something else entirely. That night, Lucas sent a calendar invite. Meridian Executive Review. The same meeting. Same attendees. Harper listed as presenter. Me omitted. Again. I accepted the invite. He didn't notice. Because he didn't think I mattered anymore. That was the second mistake. The morning of the meeting, I dressed carefully. Neutral colors. No power signals. No defiance. I looked like support. I walked into the boardroom and sat quietly at the side. Lucas frowned for half a second. Then dismissed it. Harper began her presentation. Confident. Clear. Wrong. Not obviously. Subtly. The kind of wrong that doesn't fail immediately. The kind that fails later. In public. With consequences. She skipped Phase 3. Reframed the rollout. Promised margins that only existed if every assumption held. They wouldn't. I watched the executives nod. Watched the CFO smile. Watched Lucas relax. Then the CFO asked a question. A small one. About international compliance timing. Harper paused. Just a beat too long? She answered smoothly. Incorrectly. I said nothing. Because silence, at the right moment, is devastating. The meeting ended with applause. Approval. Momentum. Lucas looked triumphant. Harper looked elevated. As they stood to leave, the CFO turned to me. "Claire," he said, surprised. "Any concerns?" The room froze. Lucas turned. Harper stiffened. This was not in the script. I had two choices: protect them, or let the system work. I stood, calm, measured. "I'm aligned with the direction," I said. Then I added, gently, "as long as we're comfortable with the Phase 3 regulatory exposure." The CFO's smile faded. "What exposure?" I waited. Just long enough. Then I spoke. "The one documented in the original Meridian Risk Appendix." Silence. Lucas's face tightened. Harper turned toward him, confused. Because she had never seen that appendix. Because Lucas had never shown it to her. Because it had my name on it. The CFO asked for the file. Harper searched. Couldn't find it. I had it open already. Because of course I did. I sent it to the room. One file. One click. No accusation. Just documentation. The CFO scanned it. Then looked up. "This changes the timeline," he said. Lucas swallowed. Harper said nothing. The meeting ended differently than it began. No applause. No congratulations. Just questions. And questions are dangerous. As everyone filed out, Harper stayed behind. "So you knew," she said quietly. I nodded. "You let me walk into it." I met her eyes. "You asked for alignment," I said. "This is alignment with reality." She didn't respond. Because for the first time, she realized. She wasn't promoted. She was positioned, and positions come with fall distance. That afternoon, Dana from HR emailed again. "Claire, we need your decision immediately." I replied with one word. "Tomorrow." Because tomorrow was when I planned to finish this. There's a myth in corporate America that power lives in titles. It doesn't. Power lives in distribution. In who gets copied. In who gets forwarded. In who can't pretend they didn't see it. At 6:42 a.m. the next morning, I sat alone at my kitchen table. Coffee untouched. Laptop open. Inbox quiet. I had slept exactly 4 hours. Not because I was anxious. Because I was precise. The email wasn't emotional. It wasn't accusatory. It wasn't long. That was the mistake people usually make. They explain too much. They sound wounded. They beg to be understood. I wasn't writing to be understood. I was writing to be archived. Subject line: Meridian Risk. Clarification and attribution. Neutral. Unthreatening. Impossible to ignore. Recipients: CFO. General Counsel. 2 board observers. HR Director. Lucas Hart. Harper Lane. And me. Always include yourself. Because history matters. The body of the email had 3 short sections. No adjectives. No commentary. Just facts. First section: Attribution. I listed the creation timeline of Project Meridian. Dates. Files. Version histories. Meeting invites. Each line ended with a link. Not an attachment. A link. Because links breathe. Attachments feel aggressive. Second section: Risk disclosure. Phase 3. Regulatory exposure. International compliance lag. The exact slide Lucas had removed. The appendix Harper had never seen. I didn't say this was ignored. I said, this risk was documented in the original analysis and discussed in the following meetings. Then I listed the meetings. Third section: Access log summary. This was the quiet knife. I referenced system-generated logs showing document access, edits, and transfers. No screenshots. No accusations. Just a sentence. Please note that the platform maintains immutable access records should clarification be required. Immutable. That word does a lot of work. I ended the email with one line. I'm available to support alignment as needed. Support. Their word. Sent. At 6:43 a.m. I closed my laptop. Because when you've already won, you don't hover. By 7:10 a.m., my phone vibrated. Lucas. I didn't answer. By 7:14, another call. Then Harper. Then an email from Dana in HR marked urgent. I made eggs. By 7:48, a calendar invite appeared. Emergency alignment meeting. No agenda. That's how panic schedules itself. I arrived 10 minutes early. The boardroom was already full. Lucas was standing. not sitting. That told me everything. Harper was there too. No smile. No polish. Just tension behind the eyes. The general counsel joined remotely. Muted. Observing. That's never a good sign. The CFO started. Claire, he said. Thank you for the clarification. Clarification. Not complaint. Not conflict. Clarification. Lucas jumped in too fast. I think there's been a misunderstanding, he said. Classic opening. The GC unmuted. We don't think so. Silence. Lucas looked at Harper. Harper didn't look back. The CFO turned to her. Were you aware of the Phase 3 exposure before yesterday? She hesitated. Just long enough. No, she said. Lucas exhaled sharply. Then stopped himself. That moment right there was the fracture. Because when someone answers honestly under pressure, it reveals everything. The CFO nodded slowly. And the attribution? He asked. Lucas tried again. Claire's been part of the team. The GC cut in. The question is authorship. Not participation. Authorship. Lucas opened his mouth. Closed it. Because authorship has fingerprints. And fingerprints don't lie. The room went quiet. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The system was doing the work for me. Dana from HR cleared her throat. Given the new information, she said carefully, we may need to pause the role transition. Pause. That's HR's version of reversal. Lucas's face drained of color. Harper leaned back. Slowly. As if realizing she had boarded the wrong train. The CFO looked at me. Claire, he said. Are you comfortable continuing as strategy lead on Meridian? There it was. Not an apology. Not a confession. A correction. I'm comfortable ensuring the project succeeds, I said. Which was the truth. Lucas stared at the table. Harper looked at me. Really looked. Not as competition. As context. The meeting ended without resolution. Which was exactly the point. Because once doubt enters leadership, it doesn't leave quietly. At 11:03 a.m., Lucas sent me a private message. Can we talk? No greeting. No title. Just fear. I didn't reply. At 11:17, Harper messaged. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I believed her. And that made it worse for her. Because innocence doesn't protect you from consequences. At noon, an email went out company-wide. From the CFO. Subject. Meridian Leadership Update. Short. Formal. Final. Effective immediately. Claire Bennett will continue as strategy lead for Project Meridian. Continue. As if nothing had happened. That's how institutions preserve dignity. They rewrite the present instead of admitting the past. Lucas was not mentioned. Harper was reassigned. Not fired. Just relocated. Visibility removed. At 2:40 p.m., Dana asked to see me. She closed the door. Soft voice. Professional concern. We're reviewing management conduct, she said. I nodded. As part of that, she continued, we'll need to understand the extent of documentation. I met her eyes. All relevant materials are already archived, I said. Archived. Another heavy word. She smiled politely. I smiled back. At 4:12 p.m., Lucas cleared his desk. No announcement. No farewell. Just a cardboard box and a quiet exit. People watched without watching. That's how offices mourn. Harper passed me on the way out. She stopped. I thought this was an opportunity, she said. It was, I replied. Just not for the person they promised it to. She nodded. And left. That evening, I sat alone again. Same kitchen table. Same laptop. Different silence. I opened the receipts folder. I didn't delete it. Because erasing proof is what guilty people do. I renamed it Meridian Archive. Because survival isn't about revenge. It's about permanence. They didn't fire me. They didn't apologize. They didn't confess. They did something worse. They corrected the record. And in the corporate world, that's how you win. Winning doesn't feel the way people think it does. There's no music. No slow motion walk. No sudden sense of justice restored. There's just silence. And the uncomfortable realization that the room is finally yours. But it's emptier than you imagined. The week after Lucas left, no one said his name. That's how power really dies. Not with confrontation. With omission. People avoided my desk, not out of fear, but uncertainty. They didn't know who I was now. The quiet analyst. The invisible engine, or the woman who made a senior director disappear without raising her voice. I didn't correct them. Letting people project is its own kind of control. The CFO asked me to present Meridian again. This time, the room listened differently. Not because the slides were better, because the silence was heavier. I walked them through phase 3. Every risk, every contingency. No simplifications, no promises, just reality. When I finished, the CFO nodded once. This is leadership, he said. Leadership, a word that costs more than it pays. After the meeting, Dana from HR stopped me in the hallway. Can you come by later? She asked. Her tone was neutral, but her eyes weren't. They were careful. At 4:30 p.m., I sat across from her again. Same office, same chairs, different balance. She slid a document across the table. It wasn't a demotion. It wasn't a warning. It was an offer. Senior Strategy Director, expanded scope, increased compensation, direct access to the board, and a clause at the bottom that mattered most. Organizational Realignment Authority. That's corporate language for this. You can now shape the machine. I read it twice. Dana watched me like she was gauging weather. We believe you're uniquely positioned, she said. Positioned, that word again. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. I asked one question. Who replaces Lucas? Dana didn't answer immediately. That's under review. I nodded. Because I already knew. They didn't want another Lucas. They wanted stability. And stability is often code for control. I took the document home. Not because I needed time. Because I needed honesty. That night, I opened my window. Chicago air. Cold. Unimpressed. I thought about the last 3 years. About the nights I stayed late to prove I belonged. About the mornings I lowered my voice so I wouldn't sound difficult. About the version of myself who believed that excellence would be enough. She was wrong. But she wasn't weak. She just hadn't learned the price yet. The next morning, Harper emailed me. Short. Direct. I'm leaving G&K. Thank you for not humiliating me. I stared at the screen longer than I expected. Then I replied. Be careful where you accept power. It always comes with a map. She didn't respond. And that was fine. At 9 a.m., I walked into the CFO's office. Offer in hand. Signed. But with an addendum. 1 page. 2 paragraphs. I slid it across the desk. He read it silently. Once. Twice. Then looked up. You're asking for autonomy, he said. I'm asking for integrity, I replied. Another pause. Longer this time. Finally, he nodded. Approved. Just like that. No ceremony. No congratulations. Power doesn't announce itself. It settles. Over the next month, Meridian launched correctly. Slower. Smaller. But clean. No regulatory blowback. No hidden fallout. Executives praised the outcome. Analysts credited the process. No one mentioned the chaos that almost happened. Because companies don't celebrate near disasters. They bury them. I moved offices. Corner window. Better chair. Same desk. I didn't decorate. Because comfort makes people sloppy. One afternoon, a junior analyst knocked on my door. Nervous. Bright. Reminded me of myself. I heard you. Don't take credit for other people's work, she said. I looked at her. I take responsibility, I replied. There's a difference. She nodded, like she'd been handed a secret. After she left, I sat alone again. Same silence. Different meaning. I opened my calendar. Blocked out 2 weeks. Vacation. No destination. Just space. On my last day before leaving, I walked past the conference room where it all began. The glass walls. The screen. The empty chairs. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pride. I felt clarity. They hadn't underestimated me because I was quiet. They underestimated me because they thought quiet meant harmless. They were wrong. Not because I was loud, but because I learned when to speak and when to let the system speak for me. When I turned off my computer and walked out, no one stopped me. No one needed to, because for the first time, I wasn't leaving something behind. I was choosing what came next. And that was the real victory. Power doesn't announce itself when it arrives. It waits to see if you know how to use it. On my first day as Senior Strategy Director, nothing changed. That's how I knew it was real. No applause. No company-wide email praising resilience. Just work. And expectations. The kind that don't come with instructions. I kept my door open. Not as a gesture. As a test. People came carefully at first. Analysts with questions they were afraid to ask before. Managers asking for clarity instead of permission. They didn't know the rules yet. Neither did I. So, I wrote them. Not on paper. In behavior. I changed one thing first. Meetings. Every project review now began with attribution. One slide. Mandatory. Who built it? Who reviewed it? Who approved it? No exceptions. Some people resisted. Quietly. Others smiled too much. That's how you spot fear. The second change came a month later. Access control. No more rough thoughts. No more ghost authorship. If you touched a file, your name stayed on it. Permanently. People called it inefficient. I called it honest. The third change was the hardest. I stopped protecting people from consequences. When assumptions failed, they were documented. When shortcuts broke things, they were visible. No yelling. No blame. Just daylight. Lucas had built a culture where mistakes were hidden upward and dumped downward. I dismantled it by refusing to absorb damage that wasn't mine. Some senior managers left, voluntarily. Others adapted. That's how you know which ones were complicit and which ones were just surviving. 6 months later, G&K looked calmer, slower, more expensive, and strangely, more profitable. Because nothing bleeds money like internal sabotage. One afternoon, the CFO stopped by my office. No calendar invite. No buffer. I underestimated you, he said. I didn't respond. Because acknowledgement isn't the same as accountability, he continued. You could run this division someday. Someday. Another promise shaped like a leash. I'm not interested in running what already exists, I said. He studied me. Then what are you interested in? I thought for a moment. Building systems where people don't have to choose between survival and integrity. He nodded slowly. That was the closest thing to agreement we would ever have. That night, I stayed late. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. I walked through the office. Lights dimmed. Desks empty. Screens dark. This place no longer felt hostile. But it didn't feel like home either. And that was important. Because when work becomes home, you stop questioning it. I packed my bag, turned off my light, and left. Not dramatically, just deliberately. Weeks later, I ran into Harper at a conference. Different company, different energy. She looked lighter. I learned something from you, she said. I smiled. So did I. She hesitated. Would you do it again? I didn't answer immediately. Then I said the truth. Yes. But differently. Because the first time, I survived. The second time? I would design. I never became loud. I never became cruel. I never became like them. I became precise. And that's the part they never saw coming. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought calm meant compliance. They thought I was replaceable. They were wrong. Not because I fought, but because I stayed. And changed the rules quietly enough that they didn't realize they were playing a new game. By the time they did, it was already mine.